Welcome to what I hope will be our the first installment of a daily event, which is every day I or someone from the TYT Investigates team, which at the moment is pretty much me and Ken Klippenstein, will be here talking about our stories when we have new stories that we've broken that day, or talking about other important stories where we think we have something to offer in the way of analysis. But also what we want to do is have a conversation about reporting and journalism and why and how we do it the way we do it, and why and how other people do it the way they do it. And just so you know a little bit about my background, I started off as a print reporter in Brooklyn, New York, and went on to work in cable news for many, many years, behind the scenes at shows you've heard of and some you haven't, and some you wish you never had. So that's our goal and our attempt, and I hope you'll subscribe to our channel and tune in for these and give us feedback and let us be better. And also, like I said, have that conversation, because it's a better process when it's an engaged, iterative process. So what I wanted to talk about today was this new report that President Trump went to the Justice Department and asked for forms that appear to be in contemplation of pardoning people who've been convicted of or accused of and not yet convicted of war crimes. And there are a couple of points that I wanted to make about this. And you'll find a lot of analysis pointing out, this is bad, this is terrible. Stipulated, yes, bad, terrible. But there are a couple other things which I think are important to keep in mind on this that make it also terrible. And one of the things I wanted to use as a prop here is the Justice Department guidelines for pardons, which I wanted to share some specific highlights from this. There's supposed to be a process, right? It's not supposed to be that the White House asks the Department of Justice for forms. The Department of Justice is supposed to say to the White House, here are some of the results of the process, right? There's supposed to be a process. In the Justice Department process, they are supposed to consider multiple factors. One is post-conviction conduct, character, and reputation. I'm reading from the thingy here. You're supposed to have led a responsible and productive life for a significant period after conviction or release, including such things as participation in community service. It may not be appropriate. They make this point about people who come from poverty, they're disenfranchised. It says it may not be appropriate or realistic to expect extraordinary post-conviction achievements from individuals who are less fortunately situated in terms of cultural, educational, or economic background. That doesn't apply to these people. So they haven't led responsible and productive life after conviction or release because most of them haven't been convicted. Seriousness and relative recentness of the offense. So it says when an offense is very serious, e.g. a violent crime or a breach of public trust, and these are both. War crimes are violent crimes, and they are definitely a breach of public trust. Then a suitable length of time should have elapsed in order to avoid denigrating, quoting, denigrating the seriousness of the offense or undermining the deterrent effect of the conviction. In the event of a notorious crime. Again, these are the aberrational exceptions they're pointing out, all of which war crimes are. The likely effect of a pardon on law enforcement interests or upon the general public should be taken into it. And you're already hearing veterans groups, I know Vote Vets and others have pointed out just what impact this will have on the men and women in uniform who are trying not just to live by the codes of conduct that they're supposed to live by, but they're also in a position where they are called upon to police their fellow soldiers and men and women in uniform. This undermines all of those people. It also says victim impact may also be a consideration. You only know what victim impact is when you hear from the victims, which is why you have a process. Here's the big one. Acceptance of responsibility, remorse, and atonement, including things like making restitution. A petitioner should be genuinely desirous of forgiveness rather than vindication. And that's one of the key points that I was trying to get at in this title, why it's worse than you may know. Pardons are tools to forgive people who have already been convicted, admitted guilt, and done their time. And this is a tool, an executive branch tool, for the president to say, due to your desire to atone and repent and make restitution and accept responsibility, we will grant you clemency, whatever it may be. It's a tool of forgiveness. By pardoning these people before they've even been convicted, Trump is turning it into a tool for vindication, saying you were guilty and it was right. In other words, he's not just granting mercy to individuals who have done wrongs, he's nullifying the law and making the act itself okay. That's one problem, obviously. But the other thing he's doing is he's running roughshod over this. There is supposed to be a process. For instance, one other factor, comments and recommendations of concerned and knowledgeable officials, particularly the United States Attorney who prosecuted the case, the sentencing judge, are carefully considered. The likely impact of favorable action in the district or nationally, particularly on current law enforcement priorities, quote, will always be relevant to the president's decision. So the reason I wanted to make that explicit is that this isn't just about making war crimes okay, it's about rejection of process. And in rejection of process, it's a rejection of all the constituencies whose stakes are honored by that process. Victim statements, prosecutors, judges, all of these stakeholders all get blown out. And so war crimes are bad, and preemptively pardoning war crimes are bad, but we're also seeing wholesale elevation of this sort of emotional, intuitive, if I want to do it, it's okay, over process. And that, I think, honestly, is something we all have to grapple with. And because we're seeing things like that play out even on the left in the Democratic Party right now. This notion that something should be intuitive, that demonstrates a much more authentic or stronger commitment to idea X, whatever it's talking about. If it's intuitive, it's a better commitment. If a candidate says, I don't know, I'm going to have to think about that, that's a mark against them. And so I think to some extent, whenever we honor that notion that saying I don't know, or I have to think about it, or we have to study it, whenever we poo-poo that or crap on that, we're doing something similar. And so I think that's worth considering as we think about this story. And obviously we'll see how this plays out, because Trump, the reporting anyway by the New York Times, which broke the story, said that this was being considered for Memorial Day. So now it's a question of, we've got 1 week for the democratic process, what's left of it, to play out, and for people to let their politicians know, their representatives, and Trump and all that. And I'm not sure we've got any questions, but I think that's it for me. So for my first one, I didn't see any questions pop up, but that's weird. I saw one earlier and now it seems to be gone. Anyway, we'll keep doing these every day, and hopefully we'll get better, and hopefully we'll incorporate your feedback and start thinking about and addressing your priorities as well as our own. So.